Summary of the movie I Am a Hero, 2015. One night, while returning home from work, Suzuki witnesses a strange incident where a car hits a pedestrian, instantly killing them. However, inexplicably, the victim's body, with its neck broken, stands up and walks away. Initially, Suzuki assumes it's just another hallucination, as he often experiences, but he soon realizes that strange and unnatural events are beginning to unfold around him. At the start of the story, we are introduced to Suzuki, an assistant artist in the manga industry. He works with his colleagues at a publishing office while listening to the news. One of the news stories reports about a woman bitten by a dog in a vicious attack. Strangely, the woman claimed during investigations that she also bit the dog in return. Later, another news story highlights a man arrested for unethical behavior. As night falls, Suzuki returns to his apartment, spending time with his disgruntled girlfriend. He struggles with a lack of artistic inspiration and tries to find a source of creativity. At one point, he gazes at his old rifle and contemplates his reflection in the mirror. The next morning, Suzuki goes to the publishing office to present his new work, a manga about an ordinary man protecting his girlfriend. However, the editor rejects it, saying the protagonist is too boring and ordinary, asking for improvements. His day gets worse after arguments with his girlfriend, who tells him she wants to sell his rifle and some of his belongings to pay rent. She eventually loses her patience and leaves him, kicking him out of the apartment due to his failure and dreams, which she sees as unrealistic. As Suzuki goes about his day, news reports begin mentioning a mysterious, contagious disease that has killed several people. Things escalate gradually. One of his colleagues feels unwell and leaves the office, and later, their manager enters with a strange demeanor. However, the workers fail to notice his blackened eyes. Things take a bizarre turn when Suzuki gets a call from his ex-girlfriend, who apologizes and asks to reconcile. Distracted by the call, he ignores the sounds of helicopters flying over the city. He heads to her apartment with her favorite food, but upon arriving, he notices her strange movements through the door crack. Suddenly, she transforms before his eyes into a distorted, zombie-like creature and attacks him. Panicking, he accidentally stabs her in the head and flees the apartment. Outside, Suzuki notices a woman's swollen hand and sees the sky filled with planes flying over the city. Returning to his office, he finds his colleague, Tomoya, standing by the TV with a blood-stained baseball bat. Suzuki initially thinks Tomoya has turned into a zombie, but learns that he is the only survivor of a zombie attack at the office. Tomoya explains that the only way to kill zombies is to destroy their brains and warns him that anyone bitten will become infected. Tomoya later turns into a zombie and ends his own life, shouting phrases about the end of the era of exploited workers. Suzuki quickly leaves the office to face the chaos engulfing the streets. People are running in every direction, some unaware of what's happening, and others fleeing the relentless zombie attacks. Amidst the chaos, Suzuki tries to speak to a police officer, but discovers that he too is infected. He runs for his life, witnessing crashed cars, burning buildings, and the destruction ravaging the city. At one point, he encounters a taxi driver seemingly oblivious to the situation. A high school girl appears, asking for a ride, but they are suddenly attacked by a zombie. As the events escalate, Suzuki remains hesitant and unable to use his rifle, even in moments of danger. Eventually, he manages to escape with the girl and the taxi driver, heading toward the countryside in search of safety. Inside the taxi, a news broadcast is shown, describing the outbreak as mere riots. Suddenly, the screen switches to Tokyo Broadcasting and displays cartoons, making Suzuki think Tokyo might be safe. However, moments later, the program ends, and live footage of the horrifying spread of the outbreak in the city begins. A man in a suit is shown speaking on the phone, ordering that everyone be shot, but then abruptly starts ranting about the poor. During his speech, it becomes clear that he is infected with the virus, as his blood vessels swell and he transforms into a zombie. While mockingly repeating, "Poor people, do you have a handkerchief?" the taxi driver hands him one, only to be bitten immediately by the zombie. Suzuki pushes the zombie out of the car, but the infected driver begins to transform gradually, lamenting his 30-year career without accidents. Suddenly, the driver speeds off at a breakneck pace while the girl, sitting in the back seat, is terrified. Chaos ensues as the driver attacks the girl, leaving Suzuki clinging to his seatbelt as the car races toward disaster. The car crashes violently, flipping through the air before landing upside down. Suzuki regains consciousness to find himself upside down inside the wrecked vehicle, but is relieved to see that the girl is still alive. The two leave the car, discovering the road blocked with dozens of abandoned vehicles. They sit on the curb and try to browse the internet to understand what's happening, reading about the virus and how it alters the personalities and bodies of the infected. That evening, they find an abandoned house to sleep in. The girl, Soyeon, asks Suzuki about his rifle, and he explains that he hasn't used it because carrying a firearm in public is against the law. While listening to music, she admits that she feels safe with him, and Suzuki feels a sense of relief despite their age difference. The next morning, Suzuki wakes up to notice a bite mark on Soyeon's neck. Panicking, he draws his rifle in fear for his safety. She explains that she was bitten by a neighbor's child 2 days ago and asks him to kill her, as she sees no point in living anymore. However, he refuses and reveals to her that he too was bitten. He promises to protect her no matter what. As they pass through a forest, Soyeon begins to feel the effects of turning into a zombie. She begs Suzuki to leave her behind, not wanting to hurt him. Despite her pleas, Suzuki refuses to abandon her, but as she starts transforming, he is forced to run. While fleeing, he is attacked by a violent zombie, but is surprised when Soyeon, still retaining some consciousness, appears to kill the zombie in one strike and saves him. The two continue their journey and later come across a trailer parking lot. Suzuki searches for canned food while Soyeon, now semi-conscious, begins showing zombie-like instincts. After days of walking, Suzuki grows a full beard and carries the increasingly frail Soyeon on his back. They eventually reach an abandoned road where they find a shopping cart. Suzuki places Soyeon inside and starts pushing it toward the Fuji Outlet Park. Upon arrival, Suzuki goes inside to try on some jackets, but suddenly a zombie attacks him. Soyeon, asleep and unable to help, remains in the cart. However, an unknown woman wielding an axe appears at the last moment and kills the zombie. The woman then turns and begins looking at Soyeon with a questioning expression. Moments later, other individuals wearing protective masks arrive and begin asking questions. However, the sudden appearance of a group of zombies interrupts the conversation, forcing everyone to flee to the roof of the mall. The rooftop turns out to be a well-equipped safe zone containing food, tents, books, and even luxury watches. Suzuki and Soyeon join the group, but Suzuki keeps the fact that Soyeon is infected a secret. A woman named Miki begins taking an interest in Suzuki and his rifle. When she asks about Soyeon, Suzuki tells her that he met her while fleeing, leading Miki to think that Suzuki is a kind-hearted person. She explains to him that those infected with the virus seem to live in the past, clinging to their memories and old lives. The following morning, Suzuki watches Soyeon closely, wondering if she is still fully conscious. She appears to improve slightly when he recites a heartfelt poem to her. Later, Suzuki observes the behavior of the zombies from afar and sees one sprinting at an incredible speed before leaping astonishingly high into the air, only to crash its head violently onto the ground. An elderly survivor explains to Suzuki that zombies now tend to repeat what they used to do before infection, making each zombie's movements and behavior unique. Amid this chaos, Soyeon suddenly reveals her hidden abilities, dramatically shifting the tide of events. Later, Suzuki discovers that Soyeon has been captured by a group of survivors who plan to steal the food supplies. The group's leader, Kagayaki, threatens to kill Soyeon to force Suzuki to surrender, but Kagayaki doesn't realize that the hostage he's threatening is no ordinary victim. Kagayaki stands with his gun aimed at Soyeon, who remains as silent as a stone statue. Everyone assumes she's a weak and innocent girl, unaware of her deadly potential. When her patience runs out, Soyeon eliminates two men with a single swift move, but Kagayaki shoots her, causing her to collapse to the ground. The survivors seize Suzuki's rifle, leaving him in tears, believing that Soyeon is dead. Amid the chaos, a fight breaks out among the survivors, and one of them overthrows Kagayaki to take leadership of the group. Later, Suzuki discovers that Soyeon is still alive and finds Miki standing at her tent. Miki explains to Suzuki that Soyeon is different from other zombies due to her strong pulse, which grants her partial awareness. She expresses admiration for Suzuki's dedication to protecting Soyeon, but Suzuki feels ashamed for losing his rifle and failing to stand up to Kagayaki. Miki tries to comfort Suzuki, assuring him that he is a good person and not the coward he believes himself to be. Suzuki asks Miki to look after Soyeon as he is forced to join the other survivors on a dangerous mission to retrieve food from a nearby storage facility. The team heads to the facility, while some survivors remain on the rooftop, distracting the zombies by banging on pots and pans. Upon arriving at the dark storage facility, one of the team members accidentally makes a noise, and suddenly the lights flicker on for no apparent reason. The survivors begin gathering food, unaware that they are being watched through surveillance cameras. Suddenly, music begins blaring, drawing a ravenous zombie that attacks one of the survivors. The team is forced to shoot the zombie and the injured survivor, who has started to turn, but they soon discover that the parking lot outside is swarming with more zombies. The situation turns into a massacre after Kagayaki, revealed to be alive, betrays the group. He had deliberately activated the music to lure the zombies and leave the survivors as bait. Suzuki hides inside a cabinet as the leaping zombie prowls outside, preparing for an enormous jump. Finally, the zombie launches itself like an arrow, landing directly onto one of the tents. It devours one of the frozen survivors before attacking another woman and crushing her skull with its bare feet. Through the radio, Suzuki hears that the leaping zombie has killed most of those hiding on the roof. While Miki hides with Soyeon in terror, she desperately calls for help over the radio, but no one responds, either because they're also in hiding or already dead. Suzuki remains trapped in his cabinet, imagining scenarios of escaping and fighting the zombies, but every imagined attempt ends in his death. Paralyzed by fear, he hesitates to act, but hearing Mickey's cries over the radio reminds him of Soyeon, pushing him to leave his hiding spot. Immediately, he's attacked by a zombie that tries to bite him. However, he survives thanks to the 10 Rolex watches he's wearing around his wrist, which prevent the zombie's teeth from penetrating his skin. Suzuki takes the radio and tells Mickey that he's on his way to save her, and they agree to meet in the parking lot. Suzuki cleverly outwits the zombies, using tactics like scattering rice on the floor to make them slip. Meanwhile, Mickey struggles to carry Soyeon on her back as she makes her way toward the parking lot. Upon arriving, she encounters Kagayaki, who attempts to take Soyeon by force. It quickly becomes clear that Kagayaki is infected, and he rapidly transforms into a ferocious zombie. Mickey starts running, desperately trying to escape Kagayaki, while Soyeon remains on her back. At a critical moment, Suzuki suddenly appears, having recovered the rifle he had lost earlier. Without hesitation, he fires a shot at Kagayaki's head, blowing it apart and eliminating the threat once and for all. But the ordeal is far from over. The survivors find themselves surrounded by a massive horde of relentless zombies. The tension builds as, in a shocking moment, Soyeon speaks for the first time since her transformation, expressing her feelings for Suzuki. Her words give him an enormous boost of morale, and he begins fighting the zombies with unmatched courage, taking down as many as he can with his rifle. However, the leaping zombie, who had been watching them from the rooftop, remains a serious threat. It suddenly lunges toward Mickey and Soyeon, but this time Suzuki doesn't hesitate. With precise aim, he fires and destroys the leaping zombie's brain, putting an end to the final danger. After the fierce battle, the 3 survivors leave the store, surrounded by a river of zombie corpses scattered everywhere. They get into a car, and on the road, Mickey lights a cigarette and plays some music in an attempt to lighten the mood. Suzuki sits silently, reflecting on everything they've been through and wondering if he too might someday turn into a zombie. The end. Please support the channel by subscribing, liking, and commenting. Thank you for watching.